Aloha! This one's going to have a little bit of a different sort of vibe to it because I am pissed, my friends. I am pissed. I just came across a Grammarly research report that expressed that we are spending 88% of our time in communications. And if you ask me, there is absolutely no excuse for this. None. I have consistently helped organizations to get their internal communications to 10% of their time or less. So there's no reason why this should be happening. There is no reason why we should be spending 88% of our time in communications, except for perhaps not being able to communicate to ourselves, which then impedes our ability to communicate to anyone else, and not having good standards for what communication should be. All right? So these are the two things that I'm going to start addressing here today so that you can start being a delegation machine, because delegation begins before you hire anyone. Because you're in partnership with your brain up here. And until you can actually get this brain to cooperate and communicate with you in the way that you need it to communicate, you're not going to get anywhere. All right? So the key to actually getting shit done is the way that you communicate with yourself. And what most people do is they start saying, well, I'm not sure what I should do. I have this huge to-do list and blah, blah, blah. All right. And they just kind of like go on this whole little trail. All right. Here's where it begins. Here's where it really truly begins in terms of actually being able to communicate to yourself effectively. Your values, your core values. These are my core values. All right. These are what's important to me. And I want you to take a look at these core values and then look at your core values and start seeing whether or not there's some differences here going on. Okay? Awesome expression. The continuum of new insights. And innovation through discernment. These things speak directly to what I should and should not be doing in my organization. These things are my unique work. Regardless of what company I'm working with, regardless of what I'm doing in that company, this is my unique work. This is what is uniquely mine to do. And so I'm going to make sure that everything I do aligns with these values, and I don't do anything that does not align with these values. The big problem that you're probably running up against is that you got some rando worksheet that said, choose some of these words. Compassion, empathy, exploration, blah, 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 blah. And that does you no good, right? If you were deciding, what part of content creation should I be doing? And you're looking at your values for compassion and empathy. What does that tell you about what you should be doing? Nothing. Okay? But for me, with content creation, what I should be doing is focusing on how I can make this an awesome expression on the continuum of new insights that innovates through discernment. And so what does that say to you that I should be doing about content creation? I should be the one that's the face and the lead of this content creation, right? That the awesome expression that comes from my business, that the continuum of new insights, that the innovation through discernment is going to require a great deal of my personal involvement face-to-face with the audience. So in any way that I am face-to-face with an audience, that's my unique work. But you might have completely different values that have absolutely nothing to do with expression or learning and teaching or discernment or innovation. You might have a value of exploration or seeing new places through exploration. And that has absolutely nothing to do with expression. So should you be making content? Should you be the person who makes content? Maybe not. Okay? So, your core values are your unique work. And when done well, when done thoroughly, they define it for you. All right? Because your core values, what I want you to see is that these things are actually made up of two things. These things are made up of what I love to do and what I love to give or create in others. And I'll show you how this fits in, okay? What I love to do, the specific action that I love to do is expression. Learning and teaching, that's the continuum of new insights, learning and teaching. That's the specific action of what I love to do. And discernment is the specific action of what I love to do. And then the other half of that, the giving, what I love to create in other people, is a sense of awe and new insights and innovation, like change, transformation, opportunity for transformation. That's what I love creating in other people. Okay? So I have a whole process for this in my values compass, and this is not something that we're going to go through here today because it does definitely require a collaborative effort. If you had a good sense of your core values, you wouldn't be in this place right now, right? But if you do have a really strong sense of your core values and you're just not looking at it, well, then that's on you and you don't need my values compass. But if you're struggling to be able to define 3 key phrases that absolutely define your work, then we need to sit down. And I need to have a look at these 2 lists, what you love to do and love to give, as you've diminished it down to your top 3, so that we can start shaping these directives. Because once you have these directives in a clear function, they serve for you as your map for what is your unique work within the business. And it's not necessarily your company's values. Starting out when you're a solopreneur, you're definitely these are going to be the values of your company. However, they won't be after a while. As soon as you start hiring people, those values are going to start shifting. Because right now, for everybody in the organization, everybody's values in the organization are just this. But in order for your team to be highly effective, once you have a team, you need to start integrating their values into the values of the company. Oh, is that not something that you've ever heard done? Interesting. Interesting. So, when you have your core values very thoroughly defined, the very next step after that is to start defining the work and where it fits in those core values. But here's the catch that I'm about to point out. You're probably missing something small and important. Let me get this board erased and I'll show you why. So what I have here are my values off to the right, the basic actions of my values: express, learn, teach, discern. All right, those are the basic actions of my values. And then over here we have some business activities, right? Sales, outreach, content creation and distribution, taxes, fulfillment, public speaking, strategic thinking. And if you were to just look at these actions, these business activities, you would probably think that all of them are your job. It's very easy to think that. In fact, if we go down the list, sales, that's expression. Outreach, that's expression as well as learning and teaching. Content creation and distribution, learning and teaching as well as expression. Taxes, that's discernment. Fulfillment, learning and teaching as well as expression, as well as discernment. Public speaking, expression, learning and teaching. Strategic thinking, discernment. All of them are my unique work. No, they're not. Because all of these things actually have much smaller specific actions. All right? Because what do you need in order to do sales? You need information on the people that you're talking to. In order to do outreach, you need information on the people that you want to talk to. In order to do content creation and distribution, you need the information to do the content, like the content you want to put in, the information you want to put in the content, as well as where you want to distribute it at all. Taxes, you need to know the laws that apply to you. Fulfillment, you need to have everything together, all your ducks in a row in order to do that analysis. For me, I do analysis for my fulfillment. And public speaking, you would need all of the information on what you're putting in your talk, who's going to be there, so on and so forth. And then strategic thinking, you need all of the data in order to form that strategy. Guess what all of that is? All of that is research. All of that is research. So all of this is relying on research. All of it is relying on your research. Is research, not learning and teaching, but research. That's not learning, that's research. Okay? Is research part of my values? No, it's not. No, it's not. But you might have a value of exploration, in which case, yes, it is. Research is absolutely a part of your core values. But content creation, not one. Content distribution, not in there at all. Because with exploration, it's not about expression, it's about exploring. Somebody else needs to compile all the stuff that you explore. It's not on you. Okay? So when you break down all of your business activities to their basic actions, then it starts becoming apparent whether or not that fits into the basic actions of your values. Okay? So when you're looking at your activities, you're going to ask yourself, what is the specific next action that I would need to take? What are the specific steps that I take in order to do this thing? Now, one of the biggest mistakes that I see people doing is that instead of just thinking about what's the specific next step, what's the specific actions that I take, they're sitting there and they're making this whole huge project outline. And let me tell you, you are not equipped to make a whole huge project outline if you have not done this before. And when I say you've not done this before, I mean you've not done this expertly 2,000 times. Until you have done this thing 2,000 times, you cannot know every single step that is involved. It's just not, it's not going to be in your head like that. All right? So sitting there trying to make this whole huge plan of everything that you have to do is a complete waste of time. Think about the specific actions that you take in order to do these things. Just consider that. Just break it down. All of your business activities and what are the specific actions that you take in order to do this. Research is definitely a part of it. And you know what? If you start delegating to a virtual assistant all of your research, like you make an outline for the type of people that you make an outline for when you're going to go talk to a lead, right? And all the information you need to know on them. You make an outline like a questionnaire of like, you know, where do they live? What time zone are they in? Da 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 da. Okay, you make this questionnaire and you hand it off to your VA and you say, can you make sure that I'm prepared for my sales calls next week? Your outreach, all right? You make a questionnaire in the form of a questionnaire, right? Who is in this position and does this role and is in this locality, right? Who can we find that has these qualities? All right. Who has these qualities? You make a questionnaire. So then you hand it off to your assistant, your virtual assistant, and you say, can you go ahead and find me some people that I should outreach to? Okay, who's talking about productivity? Who's talking about this? Having questions about productivity? Da 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 da. I go in my group or go on my page and see who's consistently talking responding to my posts that I haven't sent a message to recently. Okay, they can absolutely give you a list of people you should outreach to. They could absolutely be doing all of the research for your content creation and your distribution. They could absolutely be doing all of the research for the tax law that applies to you. They could be doing all of the research in terms of making sure that your analysis has all of the data together that it needs. They could absolutely be looking into venues that you could speak at. They could absolutely be gathering the data that's relevant to your strategic thinking. And I promise you, you can keep a virtual assistant busy 40 hours a week just doing your research. And you just have to be really good at understanding, listening to yourself for what you're looking for when you're doing sales, what information you're using when you're doing sales so that you can have a virtual assistant gather that for you, what information you're looking for when you're doing outreach so that you can have a virtual assistant gather that for you, so that, right, you make an outline for your content so that your virtual assistant can answer that as a questionnaire. You make an outline for what your taxes are going to require so that they can look into the applicable tax law. You make an outline for the sort of fulfillment that you do so that they can gather that information for you all into one nice, neat, and tidy little folder. You're getting the point, right? You can keep a virtual assistant busy 40 hours a week just doing your research. And you really don't have to go much further than that until later on. I mean, like, there's a whole method. Like, you can train them from the middle outward, and research is usually right smack dab in the middle. All right. So if you do this part, you're going to start to really understand what actually fits into your work and what doesn't, that you can immediately offload to expedite everything. Research is the one thing that your assistant could be doing that makes everything else easier. All right? Now, another thing that I mentioned is delegation begins before you're hiring people. So, once you've seen your basic activities in this way, start learning how to use perplexity.ai to do your research. Like, start there. Okay, because you don't have to hire anybody in order to start doing good research with AI these days. What a time we live in. And as you're doing this, you can start developing your SOPs and so on and so forth so that you can hire. But I have yet another way that you're probably overlooking how to delegate, because it's not just about delegating to AI. Remember, we're in a team. We're teamed up with our brain. And unless we can communicate with our brain effectively, we are not going to get through our task list effectively. Because the problem with the brain is that the brain thinks that everything is here and now. So the way to get out of that, starting with your values, right? Starting to look at these basic activities that you're doing, and you're gonna break down your basic activities. What are the specific basic actions when you do sales? What are the specific basic actions? You're gonna go on what? You're going to go on a Google Meet meeting and show up, right? But maybe you have more involved with that right now, right? Maybe you also still have to do the coordination, right? Maybe you still have to send them a link, right? In any way that you can further expedite those pieces of that work that's not yours, awesome. All right. And then you're also going to look into, maybe there's things that you can just combine. Because what if my public speaking was my sales, my outreach, and my content creation, and my fulfillment? What if instead of separating all of these things, all I did was public speaking in order to do my sales, my outreach, and my fulfillment? All right. So when you start looking at these large basic activities, think about how you can combine them after you've seen what all the basic actions are. Because I'm sure once you see all the basic actions of all of these things, you're going to go, what the fudge did I sign up for? Because it's a long list. When you're a solopreneur, you're wearing 16 hats and they're all heavy. Okay? But if you can lighten the load by combining efforts in this way when you're solo, you're going to be so much further ahead. But the very next step that I'm going to show you right now is how to start. Once you've figured out how to combine efforts, I'm going to start showing you how to delegate in your head. All right? Let me get this erased. We'll keep going. All right, so you've got a real problem because in your brain, everything is here now. There is no such thing as time in your brain. Your brain thinks that if it's on your brain, it's here and now. It's important. It is urgent. There is nothing else you can say about it. So what you're going to do is what David Allen in Getting Things Done calls inboxing. You're going to make an inbox, okay? Now, throw away that to-do list. I don't use to-do lists. Give up the just fuck the to-do list. We're not doing to-do lists, all right? No more to-do lists. We're going to use an inbox. You can call it the doom box if you want, but it's an inbox. And you're going to literally just everything brain dump into this inbox so that you get it out of your brain in front of your eyes and start being accountable to what's there. All right? And you're putting it out in front of your eyes is not only going to enable you to start actually like consciously making decisions instead of all these unconscious decisions, it's also going to enable you to start pruning what's in your head. Okay? Speaking as an autistic and ADHD person, pruning is not something that my brain naturally does. So I put it out on paper. All right? Especially as an autistic and ADHD person, I write it down. All right? So that it gets out of my head and I can forget it. All right? And I'm going to use that paper because it's something that like is essential. All right? It's not a good system if you don't use it. All right? And ultimately, a system that you don't use is because it's too complicated. So you need to simplify this for yourself. And just like with the previous example where I started showing you these business activities that were just big, broad concepts, and then we started breaking it down to the very specific next actions. Once you've got it all inboxed, once you've got it all sort of figured it and written down, the very first thing that you're going to do is, like we did on the last one, you're going to combine or delete. All right? Whatever takes something off of that list, do it. That's the very first, very, very, very next step. Whatever takes stuff off of that list, take it off the list. Delete. All right? If it's like, you know what? That's not worth doing. I'm not going to do it. Don't do it. For everything else that's left on that list, you're going to break it down into the specific next action. All right, so right next to that item in your inbox, you're going to have your next action, the very specific next thing that you're going to do. And when I say next thing, it is stupidly simple broken down. All right, thinking back on our previous example, outreach. All right, if you're going to do outreach, your next action, right, your inbox says outreach. And now you're thinking about what's the next action. Okay, for me, my specific next action for outreach is going to LinkedIn and opening a conversation with 10 people. That's my next action. Okay? And so that's what's going to get written down. LinkedIn, contact 10 people. Contact 10 people on LinkedIn. All right? And once you've got that, you're going to make a quick decision. Is this something that I can do inside 5 seconds, 1 minute? No, this is not a 1 minute activity. So this is not going to be something that I'm going to do right now. This is going to be something that I do at some other time. We're going to delegate this to a context and point in time. All right. So we said on LinkedIn, I'm going to reach out to 15 people, or 10 people. So right there, we have our context. Our context is at LinkedIn. Okay. So that's my context. In addition to the context, I'm also going to decide when I'm going to do this. Now, obviously with outreach, this is something that is kind of perpetual, right? This is sort of an everyday sort of a deal. So that's something that's going to get on one of my immediate time frames. All right. So I don't have to-do lists. I have now, next, later, and maybe. Okay. So at LinkedIn, send messages to 10 people is something that I'm going to put on one of these 3 lists, now, next, or later. Okay? And it depends on where I am in the day or in the week, but let's just, for the sake of argument, we're going to say that this is Monday morning. All right? Monday morning, I'm looking at this as something that I do every single day because I'm in perpetual outreach right now, right? This is a priority for me, is outreach. So then that is going to go on my now or my next. All right. Your now is going to be the one item that you are doing right now. Your next is going to be the 2 items that you're going to accomplish after your now by the end of today. And trust me, being as somebody who has worked as a creative all of my life, you don't need more than 3 priorities in your day. If you manage to hit more than 3 priorities in a day, that's what the later list is for. Your later list is everything else that is important and potentially urgent. Okay, so your now item is the thing that is right now most urgent, most important to do. So if on Monday morning, I'm just going to eat the frog and reach out to my 10 people on LinkedIn. Okay, and on my next is probably going to be the other other priorities of the day in terms of, like, for example, sitting down to write an abstract or sitting down to do a workshop recording. That's my specific next action, right? Because if I've already done my research, I've already got somebody doing the research, or I already learned everything that I need to know, then all I have to do is sit down and record a workshop. But you need to really, really, really listen to yourself and hear the exact next action that you need to take. Stop putting big ass fucking projects on your to-do list. All right? Start putting specific next actions into contextualized lists. Okay? And this maybe list down here, this maybe item right down here, that's for everything where you're like, I don't even have time to think about that. I'm not even sure if I really want to do that. I can't decide whether to delete it now or not. So I'm just going to toss it onto that maybe list. And then Friday, the end of my day, I'm going to go back to this maybe list, and all of that's going back in my inbox for me to reevaluate. And if I can cross something out of the list, I will, and I'll happily do so. But it might otherwise end up as a priority. So you're going to break things down into their specific next action before you start determining where you're putting them in your contexts. And you might have more contexts. You're going to have a lot more context than at LinkedIn. You're going to have context like at home, on phone, on laptop, at Facebook, at this, or whatever the case may be. All right. You're going to have all these contexts, and these contexts are going to be most useful. These contextual lists are going to be most useful where your context exists. So my at LinkedIn list is of absolutely no use to me whatsoever on a piece of paper. My at LinkedIn list is most useful to me where I'm actually going to do this outreach. And typically when I'm doing outreach on LinkedIn, I'm on my phone. I'm not on my laptop or anything else like that. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it on notes in my phone. And it's on a notes thing at LinkedIn. And these are what I'm going to be doing when I'm at LinkedIn next. Okay. And on that at LinkedIn list, we're going to have things that are now, next, later, and maybe. So within this context of LinkedIn, we have various priorities. No longer a to-do list. It's prioritized. And now your brain can rest. Because now you're no longer sitting there thinking about all the things you need to do. It's in the place where you need it. It's not anywhere else. And the better you are at listening to yourself on the way that you do your specific next steps, the better you will be at teaching someone else to do it. Delegation begins before you hire anybody and before you even write a single SOP. It begins with being able to work with your own brain to then therefore communicate with yourself so that you can communicate with others more effectively. And I trust that that should eliminate a lot of that stupid busy work and meeting after pointless meeting for no good freaking reason. With all that said, keep kicking butt. Catch you next time.